Hello and welcome to Business Reporter's Future of Retail campaign. I'm Ashley Blake. The COVID-19 pandemic has transformed the landscape for e-commerce. With millions of people across the world spending much of their past year at home, the internet has become the go-to portal for retail activity. But e-commerce was already shifting rapidly. Brands and retailers have been forced to contend with popularity of platforms like Instagram and Facebook, which in recent years have become leading online marketplaces. The dynamic growth of e-commerce put brands, traders, retailers and manufacturers to the test. Can they manage inventories, control supply chains, produce and sell quickly enough? And do they understand the trends, the customer needs, and of course, which products sell better? That's what we're going to discuss today with the experts from Syndigo, who are joining us from Chicago. Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
Morning.
To what extent has e-commerce changed over the past decade?
Oh, I think shoppers today are expecting to be able to go online to discover their products and make their purchases, and especially in a mobile-first kind of economy as well. Everything that they expected to be able to do in-store, they now expect to be able to do online. And the pandemic has done nothing but accelerate this trend. There's probably been a decade's worth of increasing growth in e-commerce in just a period of a year. And it's not going to return. Even if shoppers return to stores, they're still going to demand to be able to research products, buy products, and have products delivered to them from online.
So what have been the challenges for retailers and brands during this period?
From a brand perspective, many brands were not prepared to sell via the e-commerce channel. They didn't have the accurate information, the accurate images, the way to actually tell that brand story like they were able to do via end caps in store. So brands scurried at the beginning of the pandemic and really escalated and enabled commerce on a global basis in a matter of 3 to 4 months. And still, as Mark just mentioned, the path to purchase has forever changed. And as a result of that, the brands are now prepared to really maximize how they sell via the e-commerce channel.
What about retailers? How have they been affected?
The retailers, they operate on very slim margins, and a lot of times these large IT projects are very difficult for them to put in place, but they had to react. They had to make change and do it very rapidly and quickly to be able to meet their shoppers where their shoppers were, which was online.
2020 was all about survival. For those that made it, what did they do right?
I think the people that are surviving and thriving are the ones who took action. They're the ones who recognized the need and made a move to ensure if you were a brand that you were telling your story online appropriately, that you had accurate product content, that you were creating shopping experiences that helped shoppers choose and buy your products. And for the retailers, I think for them, it was important to have the appropriate assortment, to be able to have products in stock and available to buy off of the digital shelf, and be able to have delivery options that their shoppers wanted, whether that's picking things up in store, or having them delivered to home, or the other alternatives that the creative retailers came up with.
Let's home in on content quality. How important is it to have your content accurate and up to date?
I think it's critical, right? If your product content is not accurate, you're not going to be on the digital shelf. If shoppers can't find you, if they can't search and find your product, if your product then isn't presented with the right imagery or the right attributes, the right descriptions, they're not going to understand what it is they're purchasing. And maybe even worse yet, if your product content is wrong, then the purchase that they made is going to turn into a return and double the supply chain costs of return products, wasted products, etc. It's critical to have product content that is correct and accurate and timely, and also creates a shopping experience that really makes the shopper want to purchase the product, add it to their cart, and go ahead and complete the purchase.
Yeah, and I think over the years, you go a couple years back and we really saw a shift to what was considering showrooming, right? So someone may be making a purchase online, but they would go into a store in order to see what that product looks like, whether that is a large durable television or even it was the newest nutrition bar that was sold. The shift that we saw from that perspective was it now became web rooming. So they could no longer walk into the store, pick up the actual items. All of that content had to have the level of quality as if you were literally holding the actual item in your hand. So from a digital perspective and an e-commerce perspective, that content quality was absolutely critical in order to drive that conversion and, to Mark's point, remove any risk of return.
Okay, tell us about how you can help brands and retailers navigate this ever-changing dynamic.
Syndigo helps in many ways on both sides for manufacturers and retailers. We provide the ability for manufacturers to create their content, to manage and enrich that product content, to syndicate that content out into all of the sales channels that they might be using to sell their product, and then also create those engaging shopping experiences that we know drive sales lift and conversion rates for people on the page. And finally, we close that loop, if you will, with digital shelf analytics, insights about share of search and share of category and out of stock and pricing intelligence and other critical metrics that help a manufacturer and a retailer understand what is happening on the e-commerce pages, what are the metrics, what are the insights, and how do I use that content to better optimize my investments that I'm making in all of the product content that I'm trying to put out there.
Are these issues unique to one market? How are you working with brands across the globe?
Yeah, it's certainly not specific to one market. There are emerging brands, there are emerging markets, there are large global brands and established markets. And regardless of what category a brand or a retailer falls in, the issues are not unique to one versus another. The shoppers are finding these products on multiple different sites, multiple different mediums, deciding to make those purchase decisions at different times. And as a result of this, it's an ever-changing landscape that we can support global clients regardless of their level of maturity.
Can you give us a case study of a client that you've worked with, a client that you've helped?
Yeah, so when we were working with one very large multinational brand, they were leveraging multiple different providers to syndicate content and create content on a global basis. They needed a single platform, a single provider to not only provide that reach from a retailer perspective to drive that consistency, but also the ability to then close the loop and better understand on that global basis how their content was performing and how it was influencing sales. So this multinational brand was leveraging us from a enhanced content perspective, from a core content perspective, the marketing copy aspect, as well as analytics to really leverage via one platform the ability to not only drive sales, but then evaluate what is impacting sales most significantly.
So companies unsure about their longevity, how can you instill in them the confidence that your work will prove beneficial?
Yeah, I think it all comes back to the ROI at the end of the day, right? The solutions that we provide, again, are SaaS-based, cloud-based solutions, very flexible, easy to implement in a very short amount of time, that therefore drives the ability to capture that ROI and again ensure that the long-term health of the organization. So whether again someone is leveraging enhanced content to increase conversion 12 to 36% of sales on a specific product page, or whether they're leveraging the expansive nature of our network to get as much reach as possible, to capture as much wallet share as possible, we can provide that again in a very expeditious time frame.
The marketplace is changing and, well, will forever change. Is there a particular ethos that brands need to adopt in order to stay afloat?
Well, I think in the end, they need to act. Doing nothing is not an option, right? It's a fast-moving e-commerce space, fast-moving retail space. And again, when we work with our clients, it's rooted very much in the ROI that we can provide. So not only the ROI from the reach via a single solution, so connecting with 1,700 global retailers, being able to provide that consistent content so they can drive commerce, but also when you look at some of the engaging shopping experiences we provide from an enhanced content perspective, we see that the average increase in conversion rates are between 12 and 36%. So there's real ROI and tangible ROI from taking action, and again, being able to drive that on a global basis.
Okay, gentlemen, thanks very much for taking the time to talk to us today.
Appreciate your
Thank
time.
you.
Thanks.